This video is sponsored by Dark Duel.
It's a disastrous and exciting day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Phyrexia All Will Be One has just suffered from a monumental leak that reveals pretty much every rare in the set. On top of that, Wizards of the Coast just announced another slew of product delays.
Magic.
I am a wizard!
History.
I'm an old wizard!
The Magic Historian.
My bones hurt. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another glorious installment of Mega Magic News. And today's episode is super juicy. The Phyrexian leak is absolutely insane. But before we get into that, let's get the product delay information out of the way. This affects a number of different regions and specifically deals with Dominaria Remastered, all right? So, in the following locations, there will be no premium preview event that was supposed to happen this weekend. So, China, Hong Kong, Indonesia, the Philippines, South Korea, Taiwan, and Thailand are all unfortunately left out in the cold for that event, and it gets worse when you actually look at the release the next week, where China, South Korea, and Taiwan will only be able to get collector boosters for an entire month. So you're gonna have to wait a whole month before you can get any regular boosters. In Indonesia and Philippines, they don't get anything for the first week at all. And then when it comes to Thailand, they get draft packs to begin with, but then have to wait for everything else. So things are pretty wild over there in that part of the world. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the real juice, what we're really here for. The Phyrexian leak. What happened this time? Wizards is always getting it leaked somehow. Is this like the Ixalan one where a whole rare sheet somebody ran out of the printing facility with like, this is mine? Nope. This one is way more ridiculous in terms of its simplicity. Wizards did it. They messed up when it comes to boxes of Dominaria Remastered. Here's what happened. Some of these boxes are full of Phyrexia All Will Be One rares. Now, your gut reaction might be like, oh, that's gonna suck, yo. Imagine you get a box of these, and instead of getting the rares from Dominaria Remastered, you get Phyrexia All Will Be One rares. And you're like, wait a minute, this is a set that's coming out afterwards that they're gonna print more of and costs less, if I'm not mistaken. I'm getting hosed here. Well, that would be the case if the rares from Phyrexia All Will Be One were replacing the rares from Dominaria Remastered. But that's not what's going on. You actually get them almost as bonus rares. So in the Dominaria Remastered packs, there is a slot specifically that is for the retro cards, right? The old border style cards that they've been doing a lot of. I love those, by the way. Huge hit. Anyways, those ones in these Dominaria Remastered packs have been replaced by Phyrexia All Will Be One rares. So instead of getting just some old bordered uncommon that you would get, you get a rare from a set that's not even out yet, right? Most of the time when there's some kind of hosebaggery going on, it leaves you with the worst product. But in this case, it's just straight up remastered packs plus a mega bonus. Now, how widespread is this? That remains to be seen, right? I don't know. I have a box of it to check out myself. We'll see if it's in there. I'm guessing it's probably not going to be too widespread. It looks like a collation issue. Whenever Wizards try something new and fancy, or even sometimes when they try and do stuff they've done before, they mess it up. So that retro slot is supposed to have particular cards fed into it differently from the rest of the set. And obviously they started to feed some stuff from Phyrexia All Will Be One in there. And that makes sense when you're going sequentially from like print to print. This was the next set to be printed. So it makes sense that you'd find some in here, but this is what Wizards does nowadays. Anyways, like I said, it's pretty much every rare in the set, and there's no way that we can cover all of them in this video. So I've hand selected some absolutely fantastic ones that showcase some new abilities from the set, some interesting twists on other abilities, and I'm gonna go over all of the cards in a special live stream. You can find the link to that at the end of this video, but that's happening today, and we'll cover all of the cards. And there's some craziness that I absolutely wanted to include in this video, but are major story spoilers. So I'm saving those. I'm saving those for the spoiler stream. So I'm going to show you stuff that really doesn't spoil anything other than awesomeness. Let's dive in with the Eternal Wanderer. This is a very interesting Planeswalker. 2 white and 4 for a 5 loyalty walker that has the ability that says no more than 1 creature can attack the Eternal Wanderer each combat. You don't normally see these kind of restrictions built into a Planeswalker right out of the get-go. Only 1 creature can swing on this? So, first ability, +1, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of that player's next end step. That is an all-right ability. It's a flicker ability on a 6 casting cost Planeswalker to get +1 loyalty. That's kind of rough, but it's also going to be harder to knock loyalty off of her because you can only swing with 1 guy at a time, right? The second ability, 0, create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with double strike. That essentially means if you just put that out each turn, you have a blocker that they attack with 1 creature, unless there's trample or whatever, you're essentially going to be able to keep the Eternal Wanderer out perpetually. So I do like the fact that it can defend itself forever, because at 6 mana, that's a steep cost. But the final ability is where it gets really interesting. Now, -4, for each player, choose a creature that player controls. Each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen this way. First of all, the ability doesn't even target, so you can choose hexproof creatures, whatever you want that way. But you get to be the one to choose, and then all the other creatures are wiped out. That is a solid ability, but what's more solid is this is an ultimate ability that you can use immediately upon putting a Planeswalker out, right? Most of the time when you have ultimates, they fall into 2 categories. Either they're insanely strong and you have to build up to them, or they're insanely weak and almost don't even feel like an ultimate. And you have a Planeswalker that just has like multiple -1 abilities. But in this case, that does feel like an ultimate ability. You pay 6 mana, you can wipe out all the creatures on the board except everybody keeps 1, and you actually still have this Planeswalker sticking around. And with 1 creature out, you can even block if they swing at the Wanderer. So while it does cost a lot to put out, it actually seems like it might be more resilient than at first blush when you take a look, right? Now, let's talk about a weird equipment ability. This is Dragon Wing Glider, and by weird I mean more the name of the ability. So, 2 red and 3. This is an expensive piece of equipment, right? It's got for Mirrodin! I think it's the exclamation, really, that makes it feel strange to me. But anyways, for Mirrodin does, when this equipment enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 red rebel creature token, then attach this to it. So, it's similar to the old Phyrexian block where we had the idea of when you put out a creature, they had like germ tokens, right? Now we're going to get Phyrexian mites. But yeah, germ tokens, and germ tokens would come out with living gear. So essentially they would come out pre-equipped. This is the same kind of deal, but instead of them being germs, we have 2/2 red rebel creature tokens. This is very strange, and if I'm not mistaken, this ability will actually be on cards that aren't red as well, but will still generate a red creature token. I mean, the germ tokens were black, so it's not that big a deal. It just strikes my brain as weird, making a 2/2 red rebel and also the 4 Mirrodin exclamation. But I understand the underlying flavor of this. If you guys weren't around for the first Phyrexian block, you had the original Mirrodin, which was created by Karn. Phyrexian oil ends up infecting Mirrodin, right? It takes over the protector of Mirrodin, and the whole world starts getting converted. Essentially, it starts to like be subsumed by Phyrexia, and they tricked us. They made us think we could actually influence whether Mirrodin was going to be like taken over or whether it would turn into Phyrexia. They had already plotted out that it would, but either way, we had this back and forth where it was the Mirrans versus the Phyrexians. And so these rebels are the surviving contingent, maybe new people they've managed to bring in. But I am curious to see how the story is going to unfold in terms of how this all works out. What have the rebels been up to under Urabrask? So, what does the equipment do? It gives equipped creature +2/+2, flying, and haste, and it equips for 5 mana. So, when you look at it and go, okay, wait a minute, I pay 5 mana, I get a 4/4 flyer with haste that drops a piece of equipment when it gets destroyed. That's actually not too bad. This one is a weird one. At first, I kind of disregarded it, and then after I looked at it a little bit more, I went, okay, it's going to be tough to equip it later on, but you're not getting a bad deal. And if you're playing a red deck where you have a bunch of little like dongles who are small and don't cost that much, and then a few of these big beefy boys, okay, you got a bunch of extra mana kicking around, slap that on one of your little dudes, and now he's going to fly over on the board. All right, now forget little dudes, let's talk about big bloated dudes, like the bloated Contaminator. Green is coming in hard. 1 green and 2 for a 4/4 trampler. Right out of the gates, just that is enough to make me go, okay, oh wow, power creep is a thing. 1 green and 2 for a 4/4 trampler. It's got Toxic 1, bringing in the Britney Spears ability, deals combat damage, you give a poison counter to the person who took combat damage. Now, on top of that, why not slap Proliferate on there? So whenever Bloated Contaminator deals combat damage to a player, Proliferate. This thing is bonkers. 3 mana for a 4/4 trampler. When it hits your opponent, give them a poison counter and then go, oops, Proliferate, take an extra 1, chump face. So it gives them 2 poison counters. 3 mana for a 4/4 that swings and slaps 2 poison counters on at the same time. Now, admittedly, the poison counters and damage counters, like damage doesn't use counters, but damage and poison counters, they don't really like mesh together. It's 2 separate goals. 10 poison or getting somebody to 0. But the fact that it efficiently moves forward both goals is absolutely crazy. There's so much value packed into this for 3 mana that I'm surprised they didn't just go, why don't we just make it mythic? You know what I mean? It feels mythic level, but there's multiple cards in the set actually that come in with that kind of power. Let's talk about the white Bitterblossom. This is Skrelv's Hive. 1 white and 1 for an enchantment that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life, create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. Corrupted, as long as the opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creature you control with Toxic have lifelink. So this just keeps making crazy little 1/1s. These 1/1s only have to do 10 to your opponent in total to get the poison counters. You don't have to get his life down to whatever. And if you just so happen to hit with 3 of them and get him up to 3 toxic, then 3 poison counters through Toxic, I should say, then all of your toxic creatures, not just the tokens made by this, but all of your toxic creatures have a lifelink. That is absolutely insane to me. Yes, you can't block with these tokens, so that does restrict it to a degree, right? And you take a look at that and go, okay, I get it. Maybe it's not quite as powerful as Bitterblossom. It makes flying tokens, but at the same time, this is really powerful. And this is in white, which means you can go with different cards in different decks, things like that. This is a card to pay attention to. And it's another one that I'm genuinely surprised didn't actually get slotted up to Mythic, because it really does evoke Bitterblossom feels. But maybe it's just Bitterblossom on the surface and won't stand up to the actual gameplay level. Now let's move on to talking about oil counters with Mind Splice Apparatus. 1 blue and 3 for an artifact with flash. At the beginning of your upkeep, put an oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus. So this is a very wonky card. I don't know how to feel about it. At first glance, you're paying 4 mana for an artifact that doesn't do anything immediately, right? But every turn you're putting an oil counter on it, and every turn it's reducing the cost of your instants and sorcery spells by that many counters. So you've got a 1 reduction, then a 2, then a 3, then a 4. But you have to wait until turn 4 to start that. So it feels like you can build up to some insanity, but will you survive to do so? Who knows? The flavor on this is epic, though. Look at the artwork. You got this Phyrexian gear slammed onto this individual. You can see the corruption. You can see the Phyrexian oil oozing from their eye sockets, right? But then they've got this smile on their face like it's almost transcendent. Absolutely crazy. So this is a helping of some of these leaks. I have another card to show you. Check this out. This is RTO. Now, understand, this one we're looking at here is not part of the leak. We're going to talk about the rest of the leak cards in the live stream that'll be linked at the end of this video. But this is one of those special Hero of the Realms cards. So I wanted to talk about this while we're here as well. This is RTO Dread Scavenger. 1 blue, 1 green, 1 black, and 1 for a 3/3 flying Death Touch robot. Whenever RTO deals combat damage to a player, you may exchange control of 2 other target artifacts. When you do, create a token that's a copy of target artifact you don't control, except it's a 1/1 green squirrel creature in addition to its other colors and types. So when you look at this card, you might be like, what is this? This is the Return to Office card. So basically, this is the card that represents the unit that was responsible for keeping the workplace going and everybody coming back into the office and all of that. They literally made a special card to commemorate it. And the idea of its ability is, okay, we're going to exchange control of other artifacts, just kind of swap things around, exchange this, move things around, try and salvage what we can. You can see in the artwork, they're literally just like tearing a bot thing open for parts. It's that kind of a deal. So I thought that would be a fun little card to include on if you want to see the, 60, 70 other cards that got spoiled, something like that. Come on over to the live stream where I'm going through everything, but don't bring your kids because the language might get crazy. Anyways, let us hand it off to the sponsor of today's video.
Dark Duel is a new strategy TCG game. It takes strategy aspects from games like chess and adds in the customization of a collectible card game. Your goal is to crush your opposition by destroying their king. This is no easy feat, however, as unlike in chess, kings in Dark Duel have massive power. To lay your enemies low, you'll need to enlist dragons, demons, and even space whales. Right out of the gates, you pick your starting deck. You can choose the bog dwellers that come forth to crush your opponent's skulls, or you can choose the dwellers of the beyond, cosmic beings that are masters of ranged attacks. Or you could take a risk and choose the Apocalypse deck. It's the hardest one to use, but it's also the strongest. It lets you permanently devastate the board with meteors. On top of the deck you get to start with, you also have enough coins to get 50 free booster packs so that you can explore deck building options. And considering the fact that decks in this game are only 20 to 30 cards in size, you end up with a lot of possible decks to try out. Dark Duel is super easy to get into, and it also has a single player mode, so if that's your thing, you can dive right in. So go have some fun, try out Dark Duel, link in the description below.